everyone, and thank you for joining us in the Life Goals Masterclass. This is the second webinar of this particular series, and today we are going to be discussing a very important subject. We will talk about smart investments for a secure retirement. Retirement, which is perhaps one of the most critical long-term life goals that we all have and that we all should really plan for. We are, of course, bringing you this conversation and the series in partnership with Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. Now, just an opening thought here. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught us a lot. It has made us learn things and unlearn things. And when it comes to the aspect of personal finance, it has made a lot of us question the whole idea of financial security. We've learned that volatility is not just a function of the stock market, it can also be a function of the job market. And many of us would have, of course, had perhaps a dip in incomes, and that could have led to certain gaps in our PF plans, specifically when it comes to long-term goals like retirement planning. So the conversation today is going to center around how we need to look at our asset allocation, our risk profile, and our overall approach to the long-term goal of making ourselves secure when it comes to retirement. What are the best products to track? What are the kind of things to keep in mind? And how do you start? Depending on your age profile. If you're young and just entering the workforce, then what should the approach be? If you're a middle-aged professional, then what do you need to keep in mind? And if you're someone who's approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years, then what are the most important things that you must analyze and go over? Well, joining us to do this is a panel of experts. We have PV Subramaniam, CEO of Subramani. We also have CMA R.K. Mohapatra, financial expert and author. And we also have with us Tarun Chok, Managing Director and CEO of Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. Gentlemen, good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for taking out the time. Very important subject, right? Because we got that big pandemic jolt, and that's when a lot of us started looking at our finances and the need to figure out what to cut back on, what to keep on, where the investments need to go, what to do with our policies. So that's what we'll discuss. First thoughts from this panel on what the pandemic has perhaps thrown up. So Tarun, if I could start with you, when you look at your colleagues around, clients around, and the whole environment, perhaps what is that biggest takeaway over the last 10 odd months?
Yeah, Surabhi, that's a very important point, because this pandemic has, of course, moved heaven and earth, and everybody is been caught unawares, and it has kind of given that moment for people to reflect as to how is their financial planning happening. And as a result, what we've seen is that the percentage of money going into risk products has gone up, because people are realizing that they've never done enough planning for their risk covers. And that is what is kind of taking center stage. It has hence resulted in a shift or the kind of products people are now buying. Also, I'm sensing that people are now willing to commit smaller sums, because what I am seeing is that people have now lesser money in hand because they want to, kind of keep some money for the pot of gold at the end, because they don't want to commit to a lot of financing at this point in time. But whatever they're committing is lower sums, but they're committing for the long term as well, which is a big shift, because usually people are happy with 3 years, 5 years products when it comes to life insurance, usually 5 years. But I'm seeing that the length for which they're investing, the number of risk products that they're investing in is going up. So that's been a good takeaway from the pandemic.
Okay, well, that's the positive outcome, at least in the mayhem that we've seen in the last 1 year. Mr. Subramaniam, let me get your opening thoughts. So what would you say is the biggest feature of this roller coaster?
Actually, if you ask me, we have a much bigger problem than COVID, and that is longevity. And people are seeing funerals happening for 105-year-olds and 108-year-olds. So even a 60-year-old needs to have enough money in equity to last the next 30, 40 years of inflation. So that is putting a scare. And whenever there is such a massive scare, Surabhi, what happens is for people first rush to take some medical insurance and term insurance. Even when a brother gets a liver failure or a kidney failure, the whole family rushes to take some medical insurance and term insurance. This is very clear behavior of people. They are afraid of something happening to them just when something happens to somebody nearby. So obviously people are buying more medical insurance, people are buying more term insurance, and obviously they will commit less to bigger premium like endowment, simply because they do not know whether next 10, 15, 30 years whether they will be able to pay. People are very, very scared to commit. So you see, real estate is not going up the way people think it should. But yes, the term cover is increasing, medical cover is increasing. So I think insurance companies will do well. And yes, when people get scared, they buy more insurance. There's no doubt about that. So that is happening.
Yeah.
So two things, COVID and longevity, both are going to hurt people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You said it in the simplest and most straightforward terms as possible. When we are scared, we run for cover, literally more cover and better coverage. Mr. Mohapatra, your thoughts on sort of what you see, and specifically with respect to the life insurance sector and how people are now looking at their choices?
Actually, in life insurance sectors, due to COVID, the sale is increasing because people are fear about their what will happen in future. They purchase the life insurance because coronavirus taken all the happiness and ruin the human beings' lives, and this virus also disturb our uh, supply chain, logistics, and suspension of all the operations of the companies. The salary cut and expenditure cut by the companies is badly affected every individuals. So far as retirement plan is concerned, people are unable to pay their regular premium due to the supply of shortage of money. Uh, but as far as insurance is concerned, uh, last 6 months, there is a good market. People are purchasing insurance only because of fears and also thinking that this kind of virus may come again and again to save their life. They purchase the insurance. It is a good for insurance company because they are selling their product, but not for the other people's. Because other people's, due to the disturb of um, money control, people are facing a lot of problems in their daily lives.
Mm. Okay, well, those are facts that we need to deal with and really react to. So let's get down to basics. Let's break it down in terms of age categories, because financial planning and even insurance is all about where you stand in that journey of life and then what lies ahead of you. So if we start with the younger age group, and Tarun, let me rewind this back to you. So if we look at, let's say, people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, young earners, what should their approach be? Because this is a group that has perhaps faced job disruption right now, or maybe salary cuts. This is also a group that feels they're too young right now to need life insurance, that they don't have dependents, they don't have too many liabilities. So, what should the advice to them be?
I think it's a very valid point. This is the age group which, if it understands or just kind of reflects on some basics of finance, should actually be saving for the long term. Now, a few factors. Uh, if I was 25, and versus, I won't tell you my age right now, but suppose I was 40, and if I knew that the power, the simple mathematics on the power of compounding, and we are an economy which understands compounding, right? Compounding interest. The power of compounding, as simple as that. I think if you go back to that, the sooner you start investing, you get a double whammy benefit. And what are these benefits? If you buy a long-term product like a life insurance, uh, which could have a saving element as well, you have to, because you're a younger age, your underwriting cost is very low, right? So that benefit is there. And the second is, if you had to save a certain money, let's say till you're 40, till you're 45, or till you're 50, and more so if you were thinking of, uh, let's say, retirement pot of gold as well, you would have to save lesser today versus if you were 40 and you have lesser time in the market. So as simple as that. So the power of compounding, start soon, start investing soon, and start investing more long term. Of course, you can, eat 2 pizzas less in a month and put that money into savings. As simple as that. 2 pizzas would cost you 1,000 rupees. So 1,000 rupees a month, and there you go. You are ready for a long-term saving, which is taken care of. I think the discipline that compounding brings in, and the sooner you get in, I think the 25-year-old, and we are seeing a trend actually. The good thing is there are some smart people who are actually moving in that direction.
Okay.
Should invest for long term for the benefits I just told you.
Okay, absolutely agree. It couldn't dispute any of those points. And the pizza, yeah, I mean, side benefits for the youngsters could be the weight loss and all the health-related benefits as well, apart from starting to build a life cover. So, Mr. Subramaniam, let me throw it to you. I mean, no disagreement here that we need to start early. We need to spend more time in the market. The question is then the choice of product. So let's talk about what the life insurance industry has to offer, because there are several types of policies. That we look at ULIPs, and you have the savings plans, and for a youngster it can get a little overwhelming. Then there's of course pure term insurance as well, no savings there. But help us or help the youngster take that first step. How should he or she approach the life insurance product suite?
I think you should start off with a term insurance, because even assuming that you have not taken any educational loan, if your parents have spent money on your education, you have to take at least a small cover, 25-30 lakhs, to cover in case something happens to you, making your parent the beneficiary. Once you get married, the beneficiary should change, especially if you take a home loan, etc. So a term insurance should be there permanently, and it should not be for a too long a period. Term insurance is only supposed to replace your earning. So which means your term insurance should be, whatever age you take, it should get over by the time you're 55 or 60. Unless, of course, you're a businessman and you've taken some loans, etc., then it's a different thing. But I'm talking for a typical, ordinary, middle-class employee who will retire at 55 or 60 or maybe earlier. So your term insurance should get over by the time you are going to cease to be employed. Apart from that, he can take a term insurance, he can take an endowment plan, which is going to act more like a buffer and more as an inflation protection, because it will not do anything great. It will give him 3% or 4% kind of return. Apart from that, he can also take a ULIP, where he should have variability of premium. Maybe he'll have to pay a fixed premium of 2-3 lakhs a year for the first few years. And after that, he can choose how much premium to pay. The advantage of building your retirement through an endowment plan rather than a pension plan is you will be able to withdraw in between or increase your contribution. That liberty you don't have with term insurance, and therefore a ULIP comes in as the third product. But the first product in terms of affordability has to be term insurance. The second product has to be some kind of a saving plan, and the third has to be a ULIP. So if he's a very guy from a very poor family living in the hutment kind of a thing, you should start with term insurance. Slightly upper class, you should take the second one, which is a classic endowment plan, which will again serve as the buffer. And then the wealth creation product, which is the ULIP, which is again tax-free, and it will grow. And you will have a choice of how much premium to pay going forward. So this combination of buying all the three products makes sense, and use the insurance product also as a pension plan rather than buying a pension product.
Okay, got that. So that brings us some more clarity. We move one step further. We realize that term insurance obviously is to replace our income in case something happens to us. Then that's where term comes into play. But Tarun, just to come back now, in terms of eyeing long-term wealth creation, because the idea here is retirement security. Should one look at retirement plans? And if you could give us some features so people really can understand what this product is all about and what is it that we're signing up for if one is talking about a 30-year-old individual.
Yeah, no, so that's a very critical bit. And I think, in a way, Subramaniam on the side did mention about longevity as a risk. See, I think we should take a step back and think of a 30-year-old. A 30-year-old will possibly work till the age of 58, that's a retirement age, or 60, depending upon which sector you work in, which company you work in. Hence, you will be retiring and you'll be basically earning for 30 years. Now, given the way longevity is going, as in people are living longer now with better healthcare, better, people are themselves taking care of their own wellness, and the average Indian is now living longer. So that itself, and the way data shows, in fact, the woman is living longer than the man, and which means that people will actually now live 25, 30 years at least post-retirement.
Yeah.
So there is no income at that point in time.
Yeah.
So looking at that, the kind of products you need to look at is basically two-phased. One is the accumulation phase, and one is the deaccumulation phase. Now, the accumulation phase products can be ULIP products, can be endowment products, can even be pension products. But the deaccumulation phase, and there is only one product in the world which actually takes care of the risk of living longer. Basically, as long as you are alive, it replaces your income for that amount of period and hedges that risk. And India does not have any social security. That product, therefore, is the annuity product.
Yeah.
And you have to, therefore, have an accumulation phase at the age of 30. So by the time you hit 55, 60, then you should put that money into an annuity. Now, you could do it through various spots of accumulation products, which could be usually a ULIP or an endowment or a pension plan. And then let that money move to an annuity, which hedges the risk of living longer. Now, nobody knows. That's the beauty of life. Whether you live till 75, or you live till 85, or you live to 105. So, I mean, if somebody is going to live till 105, how's the person going to feed himself for 45 years? And the other bit around this is the quality of life. Normally, you would see that as we all get a little older, hopefully we are getting a little richer, a little better in terms of income. So you would have your best car, you would have your best house, you would have your best services when you're in the 45 to 60, and I've seen it, so I can tell you myself that usually is the time you start, you're in the pink of health, you're earning the best then. You get used to that kind of, living style. So you do want that kind of income has to keep coming in the future. Of course, your liabilities come down because maybe by that time your children are on their own feet, but you would have to fend for your own needs, and those needs peak out at that time. So if you're driving a good car and you've got a driver and you've got help at home and so on and so forth, you would like to continue with that, and that has expenses, and those expenses need to be covered for a longer time, the risk of living longer, and that is through an annuity.
Okay, got that, which is why annuity, of course, very important. The accumulation phase itself is important. First, you need to make sure that you have a significant enough pot of gold by the time you're turning 60. So, Tarun, you gave us a couple of options. I mean, there's ULIP, there is the endowment plan, and then there is the pension plan. So, demystify these for us. And, specifically, is a pension plan a type of ULIP? And what are the features, the pros and cons of each?
Yeah. So, see, the ULIP is basically something which you carry the risk of the markets, and you also get the benefit of that. And there's nothing, no returns without some risks. So if I was 30, and let me just kind of make it easy and not get theoretical. So at the age of 30, I would actually put money in all of equity, or maybe 100% would be equity in a unit-linked plan. And similarly, in a pension plan, which nowadays tends to mirror a unit-linked plan, you can pretty much invest all of that into equities as well. But then as I start, reaching the age of 50 and 60, depending upon my other savings that I have, so suppose I have rental income coming in, or I have my own house in place, maybe I could have more equity. But if I don't have any of the other income, then maybe I'll start looking at a time when in the accumulation phase, I bring down the volatility of my portfolio by having lesser equity in either a ULIP plan or a pension plan.
Pension plan.
And just to demystify the endowment plans have a substantial amount of government securities that they invest in. Almost 50% goes into GSEC. So the debt portion in endowment is pretty high. But now you do see endowment plans that we have, for example, which have up to 20 to 30% equity as well. So you get a balanced portfolio within that as well.
Okay, all right. So got that. There you go. That's a lot of information that you can process along with your advisor and then decide what perhaps suits your needs. Now we're talking about people who are, 40 to let's say 50, 55 years of age. They've already had a journey of accumulation, but then they also have other needs, other requirements. They're also paying loans, for instance, servicing their EMIs. Now, Tarun, let's put this group in context in terms of the pandemic. Now, this is a group which has had to do a lot of balancing in between different requirements and perhaps limited income streams as well. So you mentioned this earlier. Is this typically where that asset allocation decision has to be made? And what's the advice you'd give to this age group when it comes to life insurance?
Yeah, no, you're right. Asset allocation here should be a little less riskier versus, let's say, a 25-year-old. I'm just saying that because we are moving in a sequential manner and looking at age as a factor. Although, I mean, the fact that somebody is going to live long enough nowadays, you can still have a significant amount of equity in your investment products. So that's at like a 3,000 feet, just some basic advice. And this could be spanning various products. So you should have a good amount of equity in your various schemes, and this is available in ULIPs. This is available in endowment plans to a certain amount as well, and it's available in pension plans as well. Then, of course, you should revisit the amount of term cover that Mr. Subramani and Mr. Mohapatra also talked about. The amount of cover at this point in time has to go up. So by this time, I'm assuming you have 2-3 other liabilities. So you've invested in a house and you have your mortgage, and at the same time, you now have family with children. And now you need to think through what is the amount of cover you require. That is a tricky one. So your cover should at least cover for the asset cost. So your mortgage should be entirely covered comfortably. At no point in time, if in your absence, should your family have to, pay for that mortgage. The second is maybe a 5 to 10 year salary income in terms of, in case you're not there, for your family, which should include, the costs of education, the basic cost of living and groceries and so on and so forth. So I would recommend strongly that, and we have 2 stalwarts here who are financial advisors. So you should go to your financial advisors and do this math with them. I mean,
Sure.
I personally should tell you, I had done my math at the age of 30. And I'd even said, look, I'm going to buy this brand of car when I'm 45, and I actually did it. And I've lived with this. And I put my Excel sheet of my life well in time. Maybe because I'm in finance, I did not need, a financial advisor, but I would strongly recommend you should talk to somebody.
Okay, wow. Plan, and plan. I guess that's the way to go about it. So let me circle back to the planners. Now, Mr. Subramaniam, at the accumulation stage, whether you're 30 or whether you're, hitting 40, 45, you'll always have to answer this question. I have limited resources to put it in a savings product or a, wealth creation product. Between a pension plan and a ULIP, if I'm 40 today, what would get your attention or your vote? Where should that money go, the 2-3 lakhs that you're putting in the product?
I would put it in ULIP because currently the taxation is the ULIP money I get it tax free. And on the day that I get it, I can go and buy an immediate annuity. See, how I accumulate is not as important. What is important is I buy an annuity. So either I could buy a pension plan today, which is I'm accumulating money to buy a pension when I'm 60 or 65, whatever. And one is a unit-linked plan. A unit-linked plan for insurance. A unit-linked insurance plan is better because it gives you some insurance cover, which may not be very much because you would like to take your insurance cover through term. But at least whatever money you get is tax-free as of today. But 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later, what it would be, I wouldn't know. But going on current taxation, I would rather buy ULIP with a very small life cover so that I pay lesser risk cover premium. And the balance I would put it to investment. So lesser money in ULIP and lesser money in pension and more money in ULIP. But ULIP pension, but I would still keep both going because I do not know how tax is going to impact both the products exactly at a time when I want it. Right now in my accumulation stage, the tax shouldn't matter. In my withdrawal stage, the tax matters. So since I don't know, I would play it safe, but I would still put more ULIP on current taxation.
Okay, so going by current taxation, and this could change in the next couple of weeks, we don't know because we're getting to a budget, but going by current taxation, when we withdraw from a ULIP, that I'm guessing is tax-free, but it's also a function of how much cover you're getting, right? Whether it's this 10 times your premium or not. So, Mr. Subramaniam, if you could just explain that to us.
Yeah, so if you don't have a 10 times cover, you will then not get the tax benefit, which means the whole thing will be taxable. Therefore, you should have the term cover, which is absolutely necessary to get a tax benefit. Beyond that, you don't need too much of cover, because cover you go and take it in term. And as much as possible, you will keep topping up your plan so that you accumulate money maybe for 30-40 years at a lower cost, because the cost in a ULIP, running cost in a ULIP would be less than the running cost in a regular mutual fund. So therefore, it makes sense to accumulate through a ULIP rather than a unit-linked pension plan. That's all. So you look at the cost of the AMC cost, the asset management cost, and accumulate more money in a ULIP than in a pension plan.
Okay, that's an important question. When we're talking about the comparison between ULIPs and pension plans, Tarun, in terms of giving me more flexibility and controlling my accumulation phase, my investments, the asset class mix, etc., which offers better flexibility? I'm guessing ULIPs.
Yeah, ULIPs do. ULIPs do. I think there, Mr. Subramaniam's advice was pat. The fact that in ULIPs, the one big benefit you have is that in the same scheme, you have various fund options. So you can have something like a pure stock, which can be 100% equity, and then debt and so on and so forth. Now, unlike in other schemes, and I'm not going to raise competition names, but you can actually in ULIPs switch between various portfolios. You can have 100% equity. You can shift to 100% debt on the extreme if you so want, keep a balanced fund. And in none of these switches, you are taxed.
Yeah.
So that's a huge benefit. So when you are saving for your life and when you're committing money for long term, and if you're a little knowledgeable, you or your financial advisor, you will be asked to move the money around here and there. Markets are looking kind of high at this point in time. So if people were saying that, okay, now hedge a little bit and get thoda debt le lo. Put a little bit of debt. So now in a ULIP plan, you can automatically buy just a simple switch without any charges, move from maybe a little bit more equity to a little bit more debt. So all this is usually easily available in a ULIP.
And the pension plan, I'm guessing it's largely, it would tilt towards investing in the debt markets?
See, there in the NPS, there are options that you can have your own portfolios, but normally they do insist that at a certain age you have only a cap of equity, which I think is rather too conservative. You have pension plans in life insurance, which are mirrored as per ULIPs. That category of schemes do allow you flexibility. And then there's a third category, and I know I might land up confusing people, which are the endowment long-term pension plans, where it's a fixed amount because there are some guarantees linked to it.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway for anybody who's watching would be that no matter what the product name, please ask your advisor or the distributor to explain where it will invest, whether it will invest in equities or debt or what's the mix, because that perhaps is going to definitely have a bearing on the kind of accumulation, kind of returns that you will make. All right, that brings us to the next category, and this is a really important one. Now we're going to talk about people who are about to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. Or even a shorter period of time, and they've been hit by the pandemic. So, Mr. Mohapatra, for someone who's 55 today or 57 today, 2-3 years from retirement, what would your suggestion be? How do they need to start organizing their money, and what sort of pension plans or a retirement plan should they look at?
Actually, those who are going to be retired soon are in the age group of 50 to 55 or 55 to 60. They first see their retirement conference, whether it is a equity or debt. If it is a more equity, then they should divert their equity through systematic transfer plan to debt, long duration funds. Or those who are already achieved their targets, they can slowly convert it, equity to debt. As a result, their funds should be protected, because nobody knows what will happen in the tomorrow, and what kind of risks in each and every product has in the markets. During the years, they have accumulated so much money That will be help in the after superannuations. I will recommend that at least 80% they should transfer to the debt funds and 20% keep in the equity, because equity will beat their inflation in the future. Generally, we are thinking about the 60 year the retirement, but practically we are not retired at the 60. It will be a longer period, say 65 to 70. Then some portion of the corpus should be kept in equity. If they want to minimize the risk, they can transfer it to a index fund. As far as my knowledge is concerned, that fund will be generated 8 to 9% CAGR year after year, and the balance money they can kept in the debt funds.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr.
Uh,
Subramaniam,
One question.
I'm just saying I want to retire today. So I'm going to ask Subramaniam after this conversation to tell me what to do so I can retire today and have like a reasonably decent style of living as well. But that's a side conversation. Subramaniam, this question to you, because now you have your overall savings, some idea of how much you've managed to invest and save. How do you start looking at this pot? And we spoke about annuities earlier. So how much should be set aside for buying an annuity? The problem with annuities is, again, you have to pay tax on it unless the government becomes charitable at some point in time. But anyway, what would your advice be to those who are 55 plus?
See, the problem again is at 55, you're still very young if you're going to live till 110. I call this the Sanjeev Kumar problem and the Dilip Kumar problem. Sanjeev Kumar needs a term insurance, Dilip Kumar needs a pension. And God doesn't tell you whether you're going to die at 44 or whether you're going to die at 104. So because of that, we need to play a nice balance between the two. So an annuity is a very beautiful product for an 80-year-old who's looking after his own money, because all his money should be in annuity and bank fixed deposit. They're the simplest products to understand. They're the most tax inefficient, inflation not being protected, horrible products, but it is simple to understand. You don't want an 80-year-old to remove from large cap, put in mid cap, and put into all that kind of nonsense. He will not be able to, he or she will not be able to handle it. So I would put all the money in annuity by the time a person is about 85, which means I need a huge corpus. I'll get a pathetic annuity number, and on that I will pay tax. That is what I would do at 85, assuming I live till 95 or 100. But the age of 65, 70 is really neither here nor there, because you need to protect your inflation, your corpus against inflation, as well as have some stability, because at 25 you're looking for growth, at 75 you're looking for stability, at 80 you're looking for simplicity. So the same portfolio has to provide different things at different stages. So depending on your own ability to comprehend, you should go into simpler and simpler products, less and less volatile. That is what you have to do. And once you understand, you will make the right mixes. So at 55, I would still have about 50-60% in equity, because this country is going to have a huge inflation, and we are fooling ourselves into believing that inflation will be low. Give it a couple of years and you will again see those numbers very high. Then you'll again have to go back to equity. You have no choice. And you have to look at pure return, which is return minus inflation.
So I take all your points, and my God, the thought of living till 100 is a bit scary. But again, to come back to someone who's retiring today, I mean, tomorrow is my farewell party. I'm 60 years old, and there's going to be no paycheck come next month. So now, what sort of an instrument can this person look at? There would be a tendency to say whether do I withdraw my ULIP? How do I look at monthly income then?
Oh, he has 2-3 lovely products of the government. One is the Varishta Bima Yojana, which gives about 8+%, and senior citizen savings scheme, which is giving about 7.5% kind of return, 7.15 per and he has a cap of putting 15 lakhs in each of these products. So he'll have 30 lakhs. That will give him about 2 lakhs of annual income. And he could do a ditto for his wife. And in this country, clubbing is not a word which is very well respected. So don't worry too much. So about 60 lakhs goes into these two instruments, and anything beyond that, he should have some endowment plan, and yes, he should have some equity which will provide against inflation. But this will give him about, the husband and wife will get about 4 lakhs plus, about 30-40,000, 30-35,000 a month, which presumably if he has a own house, it should not be very difficult. But for the upper class of people who need a monthly income of about 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh, there is no choice but to be in equity and start withdrawing slowly from that as your age increases.
Okay, got that. Absolutely. Tarun, let's bring you in on this. Now, help out those who are about to retire. How should they look at their options, including, of course, what the life insurance world offers?
Right. So see, I think both of the stalwarts have spoken quite well. I'll just add a little bit more color to this. There are basically two kind of multiples. So let me try to answer your question, Pat, in terms of the amount that you need to put aside. So normally there's a thumb rule of 4% or 6%, we assume. So let me try to just make it simple and say 4%. So you're saying that you're assuming 4% return forever on whatever your pot of gold that you have kept on the side. Pot of gold, I'm assuming since 25, 30, 40, you were saving. So, so basically going by that, 25 times, so I'll say that slowly, 25 times of what you want annually, you should have had in your accumulation pot.
Okay.
And then, because now you're not going to be earning, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, Mr. Mohapatra has correctly said that we may not retire at 60, but that's something that, it varies from person to person. My father was very happy to be retired at 58 and, not bothered about working at all.
So, that's what I'm saying. I want to retire at 45, 50, even earlier, but then to each his own, right?
So आपको जितना भी पैसा आपको साल का चाहिए, 25 times that is what you should aim, and then you can kick the bucket of working, and then relax after that. That's the thumb rule. I would still say, and I think Subramaniam has correctly said, that you would have to have equity still when you are in the 55s, 45s, 60s, and I'm just going by your wanting to retire early. I don't know your age, but retiring earlier. So, so you would have to have some kind of an equity, because inflation will not be covered by debt instruments. At the same time, covering your risk of living longer becomes at this point the most important product to have, which is your annuitization, and ensure that you do have enough pot of gold which can be annuitized. Now, if you've got a pension plan, or if you have a ULIP plan, the ULIP plan will anyways have that pot of gold. Now, please invest that straight into a annuity. If you have a pension plan, you can commute the 60%, which I said, which is available to you. So you can take that money and you can use the money the way you want it. And the 40% up can be used for annuitization. Of course, if I was the person, I would actually not commute much, but I would put all that 100% into an annuity. Anyway, still about 2.5, 3 lakhs, and with senior citizen, and you get to be a senior citizen, the taxation is lower at if this is the only income you have. So tax benefit, of course, in annuities per se is TDS, but you will get some tax benefit available because you'll be earning a little lower.
Okay, all right. So we're coming down to final thoughts at the end of what's been a really fruitful discussion. So let me take closing remarks. Mr. Mohapatra, you go first. How do you look at retirement planning, and are there any additional lessons that this pandemic has taught us? What would your advice be?
Actually, pandemic has taught us many things, what we have never seen before. Those who are young, I will advise them, they should continue their retirement plan by controlling their expenses. And those who are already earning huge money, no problem. They can add their portfolio much more equity than the debt.
Okay, all right, Mr. Mohapatra. Mr. Subramaniam, your final words of advice?
Yeah, I would suggest that people should buy annuity in 3 stages. Let's say in case of Surabhi, she should buy it at 65, 75, 85, and 95, because I think she's going to live till 110. So what happens is you get differential rates and you don't take all the risk at one age. So keep on buying annuities every 5-7 years, because interest rates will fluctuate. If India really becomes a developed country like Japan, we'll go to 1%. But if we don't do that well, maybe we'll be at 5-6%. So don't commit all your money into one annuity product at one particular time. Stagger it a bit, and maybe I was exaggerating, but yeah, maybe 65, 75, 85 should be good times to buy your pension plan, and maybe you'll live longer. So yes.
I think Subramania made a very lovely point in the midst of this conversation. He said simplicity. He's saying at 85, you're seeking simplicity. I don't think so. We're seeking simplicity at every age group because there's so much vying for our attention. So how do you sum it up? And what's the final advice you'd like to give?
So, the best way with simplicity is if you plan life, then it can be a simpler life. If you don't plan, then complications will happen, which is what, if anything, COVID has taught us, that plan, reflect, and then invest. That's the one simple advice I will give. The other thing that we've learned in COVID is that, we all are Google doctors. We Google and we figure out diabetes hai to ye hai, wo hai. Do not be Google financial doctors.
Financial experts, yeah.
Please talk to your financial advisor and get some advice. You already have some beautiful advice coming in today. So it's very critical that you talk to somebody who understands, and of course, you are sure that is acting in your behalf, and get that done with. It may cost you a little money, but it's worth it. And just get the right advice, because these are big decisions. Do not take your financial decision like you take your health decisions, and that has become important in COVID. Your financial decisions are as important as any other decision in your life.
I think those are absolutely golden words, and I couldn't agree more. And we really hope that whoever tuned in today and whoever's going to be watching this will keep these thoughts in mind. I think Tarun summed it up beautifully. Plan, reflect, and then invest. All right, gentlemen, it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being with us on this webinar. Thank you to all our experts and our guests.
Thank you.
Thank you, Surbhi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.